Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, they're battling out for the GOP nomination. Meanwhile, the rest of the Republican base really divided over who's more dangerous for the party. Former GOP presidential nominee Bob Dole is backing Trump, calling him a deal maker, and says that his attitude is more palatable for Congress, whereas Cruz' go-it-alone stance could be cataclysmic. Back with me now, Katrina Pearson, Andrew Peak, and Jessie Jane Duff. Andrew Peak, let me go with you on this because there's a good piece in the New York Times here about this being the biggest intra-party battle since Goldwater versus Nelson Rockefeller. What do you make of that? And just explain to the audience just how big the stakes are here.
Well, I think, after 8 years of an Obama presidency, I think the stakes are massive. And I think increasingly the party elites view them as massive and they're willing to do whatever it takes to win, right? The bottom line between Cruz and Trump is that Trump polls something like 20% of Democratic primary voters over to the Republican side. Cruz polls 0. So I think looking at the two leading vote getters in Iowa and elsewhere, Republican elites are increasingly going to say, okay, let's go with the guy who at least somehow gives us a shot at victory.
Of course, though, Jessie Jane, a lot of people say Marco Rubio is the perfect across-the-aisle candidate. Hispanic, young, charismatic, millennial votes, So I thought this election was all about grassroots, back to conservative principles, not necessarily appeasing the Washington establishment, but they're jumping on board.
Well, what's attractive to most of these voters right now is that not Cruz and Rubio, but Cruz and Trump are both considered outsiders. And the reason Cruz is falling into that category is exactly what Bob Dole criticized him for. He has actually gone up and kept his Tea Party principles, while many people who ran on the Tea Party platform did not. He kept it and he defended them and he has stood his ground. He is very policy oriented. He articulates it well, and that is seen as an outsider because he has shaken it up in D.C.
Katrina, in the same article, they said that Mr. Trump, a lot of essays have been written about him, and we should have had Eric Erickson on because they mentioned him too, arguing that Donald Trump has no commitment to restraining the role of government, possesses authoritarian impulses, and is antithetical to conservative principles. A big argument over what a conservative is these days. You say Donald Trump, though, fits the bill.
Well, yes, at this point in time, we just mentioned how poorly things have gone over the last 8 years. But I will also say from experience, many of these people writing these stories have never even sat in the same room and had a discussion with Mr. Trump. So how would they know? What I do know is Sam Clovis, who's our policy director, is one of the strongest conservative constitutionalists out there. And Mr. Trump is one of the only candidates I've ever met that actually listens to his team. More importantly, my colleague was right. This is about also winning in November. The establishment may not like Ted Cruz very much. They do fear Donald Trump. However, what we've seen in Mr. Trump is the ability to build a coalition. They're making a big deal about making deals, but the problem is the Republicans haven't made deals in a very long time. In fact, they've capitulated and given up everything. So it'd be nice to have someone to go and make some demands and get something in return.
I think that's what everyone's talking about. Now, there's also a lot of people talking about this controversy over Sarah Palin saying she blames President Obama for the problems with the vets, and more specifically, of course, recent troubles with her son. Want to take a listen to that?
When my own son is going through what he goes through coming back, I can certainly relate with other families who kind of feel these ramifications of some PTSD and some of the woundedness that our soldiers do return with. And it makes me realize more than ever, it is now or never, for the sake of America's finest, that we have that commander-in-chief who will respect them.
Okay, Jessie Jane, I want to go to you because there's no doubt that the administration has let down vets. What do you think about her comments overall?
As a 20-year veteran, I'm deeply offended that she takes this as an opportunity to pounce on the Veterans Administration over domestic violence. Her son potentially has beaten his wife, and that is the issue. And for her to take this as a political opportunity to go pounce on the VA, which I have done for the last 3 years, and I wish she had joined me during that time. She has one of the biggest microphones in this country, and veterans would have celebrated her being a little bit more angry before now.
Andrew, you served in Afghanistan, as I recall. What do you make of the comments?
Well, I think there's a grain of truth there in the sense that since 2009, our forces have been being sent to these kind of irresolute conflicts where President Obama hasn't shown much commitment to victory, right? Whether it's Afghanistan, where he increases troops but sets an artificial withdrawal date, whether it's Libya, whether it's Iraq and Syria, where the war against ISIS kind of drags on and on.
Right.
You have a sense that these guys are going overseas to be wounded and coming back, and somehow there's no real will for victory as a result of that. So I think there's a kernel of truth.
And we all know about the VA scandal, which has been outright embarrassing. Really
That's
a
right.
shame how we treated the vets. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it.